Bonjour, welcome to Wahsa Distance Education Center's radio Zoom classes. This is MEL3E, grade 11 workplace math, and I am Bronwyn Slade. If you'd like to participate live today, you can call the Wahsa studio at 1-800-465-7144 or 737-4017. You can listen on the radio at 91.9 FM or on the television at Bell Express View Channel 972. You're always welcome to join me live through the Zoom link, which is available from me, your teacher, and also your DEC. Our classes are scheduled Monday through Thursday from 9 till 10 in the morning, and we are wrapping up our 5th week of our 9-week course. At this point, you definitely should be submitting some work for marking. The support questions, the ones marked with the pencil icon, are not for marking. You decide which ones and how many to do. If you're understanding concept, feel free to skip questions. That's totally fine. You don't have to do them all. But if you do need more practice, let me know and I can send you some more practice. The key questions, the ones marked with the key icon, are the ones to submit for grading. So please do all of these questions, showing all of your work, your steps, and your thinking, so that I can give you credit for all of your understanding. And this also helps me if you're making errors, to understand why you're making those errors. I can probably figure out what might be going wrong. Whereas if you just give me the answer, that gives me very little information and I can't really figure out what you need to do to improve. There are 3 methods for submitting your work. The first is to scan your work in and send it electronically. So if you have a smartphone or device, you can scan it in with an iPhone, the Notes app, or the Android Google Drive app. Both have scan functions and make your files a little bit smaller to send. If you need to send a picture, that is totally fine too. This just way can be a little bit more convenient. Then you can send it to me either through email at studentwork@nnec.on.ca and CC it to bronwyn.slate@nnec.on.ca. Or you can also send it to me through Facebook Messenger, where my name is B. Slate Wahsa. The second method is to drop your work off in Sioux Lookout. We have an outdoor mailbox at our location 74 Front Street. We're the bright red building next to the post office, and we have a small white mailbox next to our side entrance. The third method is to hand your work into your DEC. Then your DEC can send your work through the Express or fax it to 807-737-1732 or toll-free fax to 1-800-463-7852. If you'd like to connect with me through social media, both my Facebook and YouTube channel are under the name B. Slate Wahsa. All of our classes are recorded and then uploaded shortly after airing to my YouTube channel. And I share them on Facebook as well, so you can access them through both routes. There also are short videos explaining common errors and confusing concepts on my YouTube channel. They might not apply to you. They might not be helpful to you, as I teach a variety of courses. But if they are something, it might be a good place to go check out to see if there are any concepts that you can get help with there. Math is an incredibly visual subject, so I strongly encourage you to access the videos, either joining me live through Zoom or watching the replays on YouTube. If you can't do either of those options, but you do have access to a computer of some sort, please let me know and I can send you a USB key with a recording of the videos so that you still have access to them. If you have any questions or concerns, please reach out and contact me. We're getting close to the end of the term and the end of the year, so folks need to be wrapping up their courses, and if they want to complete this year, if they want to graduate this year, if this is your last credit that you need, if you just want to continue and get this credit because you've been working on it, please reach out and ask for help if you need it. My email address is bronwyn.slate, which is spelled BRONWYN.SLATE@nnec.on.ca. My Facebook is B. Slate Wahsa. You can call me at the office and at 807-737-1488. My extension is 2209, and I do have access to my voicemail now, so you can leave a message if you don't get me. You can also call toll free at 1-800-667-3703. My office hours are Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. So that is the best time to get a hold of me, though I do teach the first hour of the day and the last hour of the day. So if I miss you, I will give you a call back or reach out however you reached out to me. Okay, so today is a Throwback Thursday lesson. We're wrapping up week 5, and we're going to focus on lessons 9 through 12, which are the most recent lessons that we've done. So first, a reminder of why we're reviewing already. We're halfway through the course, so we've covered half of our material, and it's fairly likely that you don't remember what it is that we have covered already. So research done by Hermann Ebbinghaus in 1885 showed that we forget things really, really quickly. So we have this forgetting curve, which shows that if we start with understanding something at 100%, that within one day, we've already forgot 20% of it. We're already down to only remembering 80%. And as that progresses, we forget more, all the way down to at about a week, we've lost about 60% of that information. We only remember about 40% of that. So that's a lot to learn something and then to pretty much immediately forget it, because we're making space in our brains for new things. And our brain is trying to decide what is important to save and what is important to be able to just, or what isn't important, it can just throw away. That makes it hard to learn something in a formal education system. But what further that research was that if we revisit those topics, we revisit the things that we learned, then yes, we forget. So we started when we first learned it, after one day, we're down to 80%. But if we revisit again, then we're back up to 100% because we are learning it again. And now it takes us longer to get down to 80%. So instead of it being one day, now it takes 2 days. And then if we review it again, we're back up to 100%. And now it takes even longer. Instead of taking 1 day or 2 days, it takes about 3 days to get down to 80%. And then if we review it again, it's going to take back up to 100%. It's going to take maybe 4 days if you continue the pattern. So by revisiting the topics means that not only are we remembering more because we're revisiting, so we're never getting below 80% of knowledge, but also we're holding on to that information for longer. So we don't need to review it as often, so that because we're able to retain it for longer. So this is the reason why on Thursdays, I do my best to do a Throwback Thursday where we review the previous topics so that we can hold on to them and remember that information and hold on to it for longer. But first, let's activate our brain with some mental math before we go back to what we've covered so far in the course. So as hopefully you know, I don't believe in mad math minutes where you sit in a desk or somewhere and have a piece of paper and a writing utensil and you're just regurgitating math facts. That I don't believe is a way for many folks to learn math facts. If you know them, then you can practice them. But if you don't know them, it doesn't help you to learn them. So instead of focusing on that sort of arithmetic, I focus on developing strategies that we can apply to various situations that use comfortable, friendly numbers that could be different for different people. The strategies can be the same so that you can do arithmetic and feel comfortable with it. So our question is 195 divided by 13. And we're going to use the strategy of partial quotients. So we've done this before, but a reminder that partial quotients means that we're going to break up the number that we're dividing into friendly groups. Instead of using the classic long division algorithm, which many people just try to memorize the steps and doesn't make any sense, we're going to do division with it making sense. So we're still going to set up our question the same way that long division looks. So 13 on the outside of our symbol and 195 on the inside of our symbol. But I'm going to extend a line down the long end just to keep my information organized. You don't have to put it there, but it just helps trigger my brain so that I'm doing this a little bit differently. And now I'm going to think of friendly groups. So I'm not going to do how many times does 13 go into 1? How many times does 13 go into 19? No, I'm going to think about them as whole numbers. I'm going to say, okay, how many groups of 13 go into 195? That is a friendly number. It does not matter that I'm not trying to figure out the exact answer. I'm just trying to think of something that is easy for me to manage. So I can tell that 10 groups because 10 times 13, so 10 groups of 13 is a friendly number. That is 130. That is an easy number for me to know how many that is. That means that I can organize 13 things into 10 groups, and I've already dealt with them. So I'm going to subtract these away because I've already dealt with them, and I'm left with 65. So 65 isn't necessarily as clear of what, how many friendly groups go into it. So 65 is greater than 13. So I can do one group, and I can say, okay, so one group. I know that I still have enough for one group. So I'm going to deal with that one group. And now I have 52. Okay, so 52, I still could do one group again. I could say, well, I know that 13 times 2 is 26. So I could say, okay, well, that's still bigger. So I'm going to say 2 groups is enough. So 26 is, so I can subtract 26, and I can think, because I've dealt with those 2 groups of 13 things. So I need to figure out how much I still have left. So this isn't a super friendly subtraction, but I can say, okay, well, 50 take away 20 is 30. And if I have 32 and I still need to take away 6, well, so I can think of it like on a number line, if that. So 50 take away 20 is 30. And then if I take away 2, I get to 30. Sorry, 52 take away 20 is 32. Then if I take away 2, I get to 30. And then if I take away another 4, I get to 26. So this is, I can do this in my head, or I can do it writing it out to see that I take 26 away and I'm left with 26 as well. Oh, so that means that I have another 2 groups, because I already know that 13 is 2 groups. So that's another 26. So I subtract that and I'm left with 0. So 13, I can make how many groups? Well, 10 groups plus 1 group is 11, plus 2 groups is 13, plus 2 groups is 15. So 195 divided by 13 is equal to 15. And this, you could have done it completely differently. You don't have to do 10 groups, 1 group, 2 group, 2 groups. You could have seen that 65 is half of 130. And so you could have right away said, well, that's 5 more groups. I'm good to go. Or maybe you didn't start with 10 groups. Maybe you started with 5 groups. Maybe you started with 1 group. You don't have to do it exactly the same way that I do it. You can do it in whatever way makes sense and is accessible and friendly to you. And that is the beauty of partial quotients, is that you're doing it with friendly numbers, opposed to when you're doing long division and you're trying to always find the biggest amount. Because if you don't find the biggest amount, then you don't end up with the right answer. So this way you can do it in various ways and still get the same answer, but using whatever tools are friendly and comfortable for you. Okay, that's partial quotients. All right, so let's go over the highlights of what we have done in the course so far. So we're going to start with Unit 1, which is what we did the longest ago. So this is a ways back, right? Almost 5 weeks ago, most of it. So Lesson 1 was earning an income, where we talked about salary, which is how much you earn per year. Piecework is how much you earn per piece or job. And then we also talked about job advertisements to understand them. Then Lesson 2 was commission and hourly rates, where we talked about hourly rates is when you're getting a paid amount per hour. It's the number of hours that you work. The more hours you work, the more money you make. We talked about how there is a minimum wage of $15 for adults in Ontario. Therefore, everybody has to be paid at least $15 an hour if you are an adult. It doesn't matter what your job is, that is the minimum wage that you have to be paid. Many of our questions don't use $15 as a minimum wage. They may have something lower. That's just for the sake of mixing up the math instead of always doing 15 times something. But technically, they should be $15 or more to be legal. Then we talked about overtime, which is usually time and a half, which means that if you work more than your regularly scheduled hours, that you get paid more because you are working overtime. You are putting in extra work. So usually it's time and a half, which means that it is 1 hour and a half hour equivalent of work for 1 hour of work. So if your minimum wage is $15, So you would do 1.5 times that. So 1.5 times 15 is half of 15 is $7.50. So $7.50 plus $15 is $22.50 would be your overtime rate if you work for minimum wage. And then we talked about commission, which is when you earn a portion of your sales. So if you sell something for a certain amount, then your earnings is based on how much that is, and that you get a certain percentage of that amount. And you can sometimes have sole commission, which means that you are only working with commission. So it depends 100% on how much you sell. Or you can, there can be some places where you get a flat rate, a base rate of a certain amount a week or a certain amount 2 weeks or whatever, and a commission on top of that. Lesson 3 was gross and net pay. So gross, your gross income is your income before taxes. So it is that salary, or it's that your hourly rate times the number of hours that you work. It's how much money in total you make. Your net income is how much you take home after deductions. So that's how much you actually have to spend. We talked about standard deductions. So that's what you take off. So to go from your gross income to your net income. And those are paying into your Canada pension plan, which is for when you retire or when you're older, you have an income, you can't work as much. Your EI, which is employment insurance. So if you lose your job or your job is seasonal, then you can apply for EI and get some payment when you don't have work, when work isn't available to you. And income tax, which is the taxes that we all pay in Canada to contribute to the services that we all benefit from. So that is like our medical care and our education and our police and defense systems and our road maintenance and infrastructure. All of those things get paid for because they all need to be paid. They take money. Those all come out of our income tax, which everyone contributes to, which we'll talk more about later. And then we talk about monthly expenses, just a little bit in terms of budgeting, a simple beginning look at budgeting in terms of recognizing how much you need to spend on things, how much money you have available based on your net income. Lesson 4 was paying taxes. So here we looked more at income tax. We looked at the tax paperwork to be able to, what you need to fill out in order to complete your taxes. We talked about tax brackets, which are like pockets, and how our taxes are calculated in Canada in terms of the system, that you don't get taxed the same amount depending on how much money you make. Each portion of money is taxed at different rates depending on how much it is. And we talked about percentage of income tax, just in terms of knowing what sort of how much of your income is you're paying in taxes. And finally, for this lesson, we talked about the hidden taxes, which are on jewelry, cigarettes, and gasoline, which are taxes that are integrated already into the price, so we don't add them on top of it. And that might be something that many folks don't necessarily realize. Lesson 5 of the end of Unit 1 was making purchases, where we talked about making change, particularly with the fewest coins and bills possible. We talked about sales tax with PST, GST, HST, depending on different provinces, goods and services tax, and then the harmonized sales tax, and how those are different in different provinces and territories. We talked about how to calculate discounts, and that you need to calculate the discount first and the tax after the discount. And we talked about estimating costs in terms of, just in terms of when you're purchasing something, sometimes you don't know exactly how much it is, but if you can estimate, you can get a rough idea so that you can make an informed decision. Okay, and now moving on to Unit 2. First, we talked about lesson 6 was buying decisions. So understanding the unit price, which is often thought of as your best buy, so that you can get the most for your money if that's what you like. Incentive programs, so how companies try to get loyalty and get you to return to their stores because they give you points or rewards or things like that. And we talked about currency conversions, focusing specifically on converting money from Canadian dollars to US dollars or US dollars to Canadian dollars, and understanding how that works. Lesson 7 was simple interest, which is calculated only on the principal. So when you are investing or borrowing, the interest is only calculated on how much you invested or how much you borrowed at the beginning. And we use the formula I equals PRT. And then if we were trying to find the total amount, we had to take our principal, P, plus our interest, I. Lesson 8 was from simple to compound interest. So again, simple interest is only calculated on the principal, whereas compound interest is calculated on the principal and the interest as you accumulate it. And we worked through how you could do that, how you can track that on a spreadsheet to understand what's going on with compound interest. All right, so that's what we have covered previously, the first few weeks of our course. And now we're going to just do a review of the most recent lessons that we covered at the end of last week and this week. So lesson 9 was compound interest. So remembering that compound interest grows exponentially. So the pattern increases or decreases at a constant ratio. You're multiplying or dividing by the same amount each time. Our formula that we used is A equals P times 1 plus R over N, all to the exponent NT. A is your final amount, P is your principal, R is your interest rate as a decimal, T is your time in years, and N is the number of compound periods per year. If you're looking for your interest, you to subtract your principal from your amount to find out how much interest you actually earned or paid. Lesson 10 was banking transactions. So we talked about different types of accounts, checkings and savings particularly. We talked about the various types of codes and banking transactions. So things about like withdrawal or deposit or direct deposit or pre-authorized debit, all of those sorts of things were the codes, so you can understand what it is that's going on in your bank account. Then we talked about online banking and how you can have access to the statements so that you can understand it's good to keep track of what is going on in your bank account. And that online banking, you can do most types of transactions. You can't withdraw cash, but you can do most things on online banking, through online banking. And then we talked about debit card banking and how when you take money out of an ATM, there are fees. If you're taking it out of an ATM, like an automated teller machine, a bank machine, if you're taking one out of a bank that is associated or a machine that's associated with your bank, then you don't get as high fees. If you take money out of one that is associated with a different bank or is a generic one, it's not associated with a bank, it's just a machine with a separate company, those are going to have high fees. So you get charged fees from the machine, from that company, and you also get charged fees from your bank. So it uses up a lot of money to use an ATM that isn't associated with your bank. And those you can just generally draw cash out of. But otherwise, if you're doing one with your own bank, you can do most types of transactions where you can pay bills, deposit money, withdraw money. There's various things you can do. Lesson 11 was credit cards. So we had to understand the vocabulary and how to apply to make sure that we were all talking about the same thing. We talked about how to choose a card. So looking at the interest rate, the annual fees, your credit score tracker, if you need a security deposit, and if there's any rewards that make sense to you. And also asking where you're going to use it. So is it something that you're using for travel a lot, something that you're using for hotels, for groceries, for gas, for just in terms of that kind of idea, that might make a difference if you're getting points or cash back or something. It might make sense to align your credit card with the type of purchasing that you're making. And we talked about the true cost of borrowing when you're using a credit card. So if you're paying only minimum payments, your interest on your new payments and on your balance is charged immediately. So you're just getting interest charged every day if you're only making minimum payments, and it's going to take years for you to pay off your balances, especially if you keep buying things on your card. So paying your minimum payments is not the best way. It is best to use your credit card to spend money that you already have. So instead of thinking of it as credit and that you can pay it back later, thinking about, I do have access to the money and I'm just using this card as the method of purchase, but then I'm going to be able to pay it off 100% right away. That is the best way to use a credit card. in order to not have to pay a lot of interest back. And that the compound interest formula that we did in lesson 9 is how the interest is calculated on a credit card. And then finally, lesson 12, which we talked about loans. So we talked about different types of loans. So personal loans, and then compared that to credit cards, which we just covered, and lines of credit. And so lines of credit are different than a loan, because a loan you get a lump sum amount. Line of credit is a little bit more like a credit card, but it's usually a higher amount. Often can be a higher amount and at a lower interest rate. And so it's a revolving. You can borrow and pay it back, borrow and pay it back, borrow and pay it back. But you have to have really good credit in order to have access to those. We also talked about the dangers of payday loans and check cashing, and how both those services are convenient and sometimes you need to use them, but they end up costing you a lot of money. So payday loans are very dangerous and are likely to trap you into a debt spiral forever, basically, and they charge you incredibly high interest rates. So that's something to be really wary of. And again, we talked about the cost of loans, and so how larger amounts, longer terms, lower payments, higher rates, and less frequent payments all cost you more interest. So those are all things to consider. If you can adjust them, that you might be able to pay less interest in the long run. Then finally, we talk about amortization and amortization schedules, which show how much of your payment is going towards paying off the loan and how much is paying interest, to just to be informed and keeping track of that information. Okay, that is everything that we've covered so far in our course. So that is a lot, but it is over half of the material, because now we're covered from lesson 1 through 12. And there's only 20 lessons in our course. So it's a lot, but going over it is really helpful in terms of remembering what we did so long ago, because it's a lot of information. So now we're going to do some practice questions. They're mixed up so that we don't know which one's going to be which. We're not covering from every single unit. We just don't have enough time, but mixing them up is going to help us so that when we are in real life and we aren't being told this is a compound interest problem, that we are able to use the tools that we have to solve those problems. All right, so our first question, number 1, Ashu invests $10,000 at 4% per annum compounded semi-annually for 8 years. How much do they have at the end of 8 years? So because this question says that they are investing compounded semi-annually, I know this is a compound interest question, because we're investing and it's compounded. So that means that I'm going to use the formula A equals P times 1 plus R divided by N, all to the exponent NT. That's what, because it says compounded, I know that that's connected to lesson 9. So if we're trying to figure out how much they have at the end of the years, we're looking for A. So what I'm going to do is I list out all of my variables so that I can figure out what they are for my question. So P is equal to my principal, how much we invest, and that's $10,000. R is our interest rate, which is 4% per annum, so 4% per year. So we do 4%, which is equal to 0.04 as a decimal. Our N is our compounding period. So it's compounded semi-annually. So semi-annually is twice a year. That means our N is 2. And our T is our time in total years, and that is for 8 years. So our T is 8. Then we put it into our formula. So we have 10,000 times 1 plus 0.04 divided by 2, all to the exponent 2 times 8. So we're going to use our calculator. 10,000 times bracket 1 plus 0.04 divided by 2, all to the exponent of 2 times 8. And that gives us $13,727.86. 13,727.86. 13,727.86. Okay, so that's how much money they have at the end of 8 years. So does that answer the question? Yes, they have $13,727.86 after 8 years. So then part B, how much interest was earned? So to figure out, because that's not all interest, they started with a certain amount, right? So to find your interest, you do your amount, take away your principal. So our amount is $13,727.86. Take away 10,000, because that's how much they invested at the beginning. So we take away 10,000 from that, we get $3,727.86. So that's how much interest was earned. Okay, and that's a compound interest question. Number 2, Larry, a student, earned $9.75 per hour and worked 15 hours a week for 45 weeks last year. Which credit card would be right for him? So we have a list of 3 different credit cards. We have credit card A, which has an annual fee of nothing, $0, which has a minimum household income of $15,000. So it means that everybody who lives in the house, their combined income must be $15,000 at least. A minimum student income. So if you're a student, your income, this is just personal. It doesn't matter where you're living, if you're living at home and getting support, but if you're a student, your minimum income of $1,200 and you get a credit limit of $500. So it's a low credit limit, but you need a lower income. Card B is an annual fee of $29. So every year you have to pay $29. A minimum household income of $25,000, a minimum student income of $2,300, and a credit limit of $1,500. And then credit card C has an annual fee of $99, a minimum household income of $35,000, a minimum student income of $5,000, and a credit limit of $5,000. So in order to figure out which of these cards would be right for Larry, we need to figure out how much of an income he has as a student, because that's what's going to change. It'd be nice to have no annual, like we can pick in terms of wanting an annual fee or not and credit limit, but we really only going to know if we're successful based on the income. So this is a credit card question, but also an hourly rate question. So to figure out how much he makes in a year, we're going to do $9.75 is the wage. So that's per hour times 15 hours. So this is your weekly, Larry's weekly salary or weekly earnings. So $9.75 times 15 is equal to $146.25. Sorry, my pen is giving me trouble. So then yearly, because we know that Larry worked 45 weeks in a year. So for 45 weeks, he made $146.25. So that if we multiply that, 45 times 146.25. I missed a decimal, that changes things dramatically. And so he makes an income of $6,581.25. Now, is this your gross income, his gross income, or his net income? This is his gross income, but that's what they're talking about. 65.85.25. No, 65.81.25, I believe is what it was. Yeah. Okay. So Larry's yearly income is over $6,000, which means that he could, because as a student, his income needed to be $1,200, $2,300, or at least $5,000. So his income is high enough that he could have any of these credit cards, and he just needs to decide which card would be right for him. So he is eligible for all 3 cards. But depending on the credit limit he wants, he should pick. So sometimes there isn't an obvious answer. It's okay. So he can pick if he wants a higher credit limit, then he would have, but and is willing to pay a fee, then he could pick credit card C. If he didn't want to pay a fee and just wanted a small credit card to start with, then he could pick card A, which has a small limit but doesn't charge you a fee, which might be a good starting place. So that's how we would figure out that. That's a credit card question. Don't know why it decided to write. Okay. My computer likes to, what? Sorry. There we go. It's just being weird. Okay. Number 3, Wilma bought a vacuum cleaner for $649 while staying with her cousin in Pennsylvania. When she crosses the border back into Canada, she will have to pay HST on the Canadian conversion. How much Canadian does she pay? So we need to figure out what the US dollars to Canadian conversion rate is. And we've talked about how this changes constantly. So yes, we can remember what it maybe was, but it's best to look it up. So I'm just looking it up. I just put in US dollars, USD to CAD in my Google search, and I got $1.30 Canadian dollars. So one US dollar is $1.30 Canadian dollars, and that's updated today. So you could put it in here and just get the information, but I want to see that you actually know how to calculate it, so we're not going to do that. So US to Canadian is $1 US equals $1.30 Canadian. So that means that if we have 649 US dollars, we times that by $1.30, because for every US dollar, it's $1.30 Canadian. And then we can figure out how much that is in Canadian dollars. So 649 times 130 is equal to $843.70. $843.70. So that's how much the price would be in Canadian, but we have to include HST. And remember, so we're going to take our Canadian amount, $843.70, and we can times it by 13% and then add that on, or we can times it by 1.13, 113%, and that'll tell us the full amount. Either way is completely fine. So that's $953.38. $953.38. So how much does she pay Canadian? Have we answered it? Yes, she pays $953.38 Canadian in total. That is a currency conversion question. Number 4, you have this cash: a $20 bill, a $10 bill, a $5 bill, 2 toonies, a loonie, 3 quarters, and 4 dimes, 10 cents. What would you pay with to get the fewest coins in change for each purchase? So we have $18. We spend $18.16, and we want to get the least money back. So first we have to round this off because we're paying in cash, which means that we don't have any pennies. So we can't pay 16 cents. It's not possible. But 16 cents, the closest that it is to is 15 cents. So this is going to be, we need to pay $18.15 is how much we'd actually pay in terms of cash. So we could just pay with $20, and that would get us, that would be fine. We'd end up having a loonie and a bunch of smaller change back. But let's see if we can get rid of more bills and coins and get closer to $18.15. Our goal is to try to get as close to that as possible. So if I do $10 plus $5 plus $2 plus $1, that is $18. 5 plus 10 is 15, plus 2 is 17, plus 1 is 18. Okay, so I have all of those. And then if I'm looking for 15 cents, well, I have a quarter or dimes. Well, I can play 20 cents. And that means I will just get it 5 cents in return. So yeah, so I would, sorry, I don't just know how I'm writing this out. It's not very pretty. So all of those we're going to pay with 1, and then we're going to have 10 cents, and we're going to do that times 2, and we will get 1 coin in return. That's pretty good. Can't really get less than 1 coin unless you can have exact change, which we couldn't. Okay, so then our second one is $24.29. So again, we need to round. So this is $24.30. That is our closest cents. So to do that, we're going to have to use our $20 bill. So we're going to have to do 20 times 1. And then, okay, we can do 2 toonies. So we can do $2 times 2. That gives us 24. And now we're trying to get 30. Well, we can just play with 3 dimes. So we can do 10 cents times 3, and that gives us 30. So we end up paying $24.30. So we get no coins in return. 0 coins, which is like my favorite. Doing exact change makes me so happy. I know, I'm a geek. It's all good. So that is making change and using the fewest coins, getting fewest coins back question. Okay, number 5. Gregory clears tables at a restaurant. He is paid $7.10 per hour plus 4% of all tips collected by the servers. 1 week, he worked 30 hours and the tips while he worked totaled $1,350. How much did he earn that week? So this is a commission question because he's getting 4% of the tips. So we need to figure out his hourly wage earned. And then we need to figure out the commission earned. And then we can add them together. So hourly earned, he worked 30 hours at a rate of $7.10. So that, if we multiply that, 30 times $7.10 is equal to $213. So his wage was $230. And then his commission was, he got 4%, which is 0.04 of $1,350. So we multiply those together. 0.04 times $1,350 is equal to $54. Equal to $54. So the total earnings is equal to 213 plus 54. So that's $267. So Gregory earned $267 that week. And that is a commission question. Number 6. Here is the part of Ryan's passbook that shows his transactions in May. So a passbook we haven't talked about before, but it's just a booklet that used to be used. I don't know if they're still used. but that you could get your transactions printed. You go to the bank and you could get your transactions printed in this little book to keep track of what was going on. Again, with technology today in terms of having access to banking, like mobility apps and online banking, means that this is kind of obsolete, but it might still be possible. Basically, this is a statement for May for Ryan. So when did Ryan get paid? So we have to look into, so we have our date, our access point, so where that might have happened, withdrawal description or deposit description, and the balance. So getting paid means it's a deposit. So here it says pay CD World 260. So that means that we can see that he got paid from CD World, I guess is where he works, and he got paid $260. And that was an ET, an electronic transfer, on May 21st. So to answer the question, he got paid on May 21st. What transaction did he make on May 9th? So let's look at May 9th. It's an ATM withdrawal of $30. So ATM is what happened. WT is withdrawal. So he took $30 out of an ATM. Explain how the amounts in the balance column are calculated. So your balance is your running total of how much is in your account. So withdrawals are subtracted from it. So 126. So we don't have the starting balance. So when we take $30 away, it would have been $156.94 before to start the month. And so then now he took away $30 and it's $126.98. Then he made a debit transaction of $22.78. And so $126.98 take away $22.78 is $104.20. And then he got paid. So deposits are added. So then it went up $260. And then a check cleared. So it went down $50 because it's a withdrawal. And then a service charge, it went down $5.40. So withdrawals are subtracted. Sorry, my brain couldn't spell subtracted for a second. It's very messy. It's awful. And deposits are added. Okay, question 7. So refer to the amortization schedule of Alexis's car loan. How many years is it going to take to pay for the car? So this is just a picture of an amortization schedule. So it's got the number of payments per year, the annual interest rate, the amount of the loan, the length of the loan. Then it has how much your payment is, how many payments there are, total loan or total interest paid, and then it has your schedule. So your payment number, the payment amount, the interest, the principal, and the balance. Here you can see that it jumps from line 27 to line 41. So it doesn't show you every single payment. It shows you the payments at the beginning and the payments at the end. So how many years is it going to take to pay off the car? So we can look here. It says the length of the loan is 3 years, or we can see how many payments they made. So they made 36 payments and their monthly payments. So divide that by 12 gives us 3 years. How much will the car have cost them? So how much are they going to end up paying overall? So we can figure that out by doing their payment. So their payment is $764.50 times 36. There's 36 of those payments. So how much do they pay in total? Using a calculator, 764.50 times 36 is equal to 27,522. So that's how much it costs them in total for the car, including interest. How often are their payments made? Well, they are number of payments per year is 12. So that means that they're monthly payments. And what do you notice about the portion of each payment that is interest as the payments are made? What about the portion of principal? So we can look that as we make more payments, our interest goes down. We're paying less and less interest. And our principal amount is increasing. It's getting bigger. So interest gets less. And principal gets more. And that's how these loans all work. There we go. Okay, so we completed lesson 1 and 2, and we've started on to lesson 3. So you should definitely be able to submit lessons 1 through 10. Those are the first 2 units for marking. If you have lessons, any lessons, please submit them so I can mark them and get them back to you, and you can be getting them together for your credit. Remember to do the key questions, do all of them and showing all of your work. If you have any questions or concerns, if you're struggling with anything, please reach out. You can call me at 807-737-1488, extension 2209, or you can call toll free at 1-800-667-3703. You can email me at bronwyn.slate, which is spelled BRONWYN.SLATE@nnec.on.ca. You can connect with me through Facebook at B-Slate Wahsa and watch replays of this lesson as well as all of our other lessons on YouTube, where my channel is B-Slate Wahsa. I'm in the office from Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. So if you want to reach out to me during that time, it is the easiest time to get a hold of me. I hope you have a lovely day. Thanks for joining me. Miigwech.